Welcome, ladies and gentlemen and ladies. It's your boy LS3. Welcome to another episode of Medicine Ball, where we focus on all things mental health. But first, go ahead and let that beat drop. Yes, y'all. Welcome to Medicine Ball with your boy LS3 to be exact. And if you ain't in shape, at least your brain should be. That's right, we focusing on giving your brain a six-pack. What's that mean? Well, we talk about all things related to mental health. Whether you're suffering from a mental health illness or know somebody who is. Whether you're suffering from depression or anxiety and just want to know some more information about it, this is your family. This is your outlet. I am not a doctor. I am not a psychiatrist, psychologist, or any type of medical professional. However, I have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder level 1 for 15 years. And through my trials and tribulations, I have come up with some things to help you get through it. Whether you want to know about therapy, dealing with the medication, dealing with your depression, this is your place. But we also talk about the positive victories, winning, setting good patterns and good habits to make sure that you're always focusing on where you're at mentally. This week's episode, the spectacle of mistakes. That's right, we live in a society where mistakes are put up on a pedestal and made a spectacle of, but we're going to give you some tips and tricks today to learn from your mistakes, become a better person, and use them to your advantage moving forward. Without letting you wait any further, I bring you the spectacle of mistakes. Welcome to another episode of Medicine Ball. That's right, it's your boy LS3. Just want to give you guys some quick updates, man. You can follow the page or like the Medicine Ball group or Medicine Ball page on Facebook. I'm also located on Twitter under LS3Ball, Medicine Ball on Twitter. You can reach me on Facebook as well under my name, LS3 Lorenzo Scott III. And you can also email me at medicineballls3@gmail.com. We are available. I am glad with you guys' help of the support and with the hard work we got going on here, we are available on all major platforms. What's that mean? You could quickly now go search for Medicine Ball, whether it be on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, Anchor FM, Spreaker. We're everywhere. So go follow, man, and subscribe. A lot of people are reaching out to me like, hey, I didn't get an update about the episode. Yo, when you go listen to it, just hit the subscribe button. You can stay up to date. Again, I'm wrapping up on this season, so next season we have a lot of big stuff coming up, including giveaways, prize bags, man. I got merch coming. A lot of people have told me that they like the Medicine Ball logo and whatnot. I got stuff coming. And, if you know anybody who may be suffering or, on the low and you want to be discreet about it, who may have a problem with the mental health illness or whatnot, this is your place to get information on how to maybe talk to that person, but also an outlet or something that you can just slip into there. It's real easy. If you go on one of the platforms where you can be listening to your podcast, click that share button, man. Copy the link or just share it. Send it to a little message. You don't got to make a spectacle about it, man. Mental health is something that's still very, very taboo. I'm just trying to be ahead of the curve. A lot of people don't want to be forthcoming about it, and we have to change that. We have to make this something that we talk about openly and discuss it so that we can make sure that everyone who needs any type of help, whether it be counseling, medication, or therapy, we can give them that outlet. We need to build a community where people who are going through the same things can talk openly about it, okay? So I'm willing to be the scapegoat on it, man. It's nothing, man. I know it's not cool to suffer from a mental health disease, and a lot of people are still finding out that didn't know. I am diagnosed as bipolar and have been for 15 years. So, this is the place that we're building and the forum that we're building. Let's get behind it and let's get it popping, all right? All right, so let's go right into it. I don't know who this quote came from, so I'm not taking credit for it or anything, but the quote is, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from poor judgment. The spectacle of mistakes, man. Let's get right into this. So, we live in a world, man, where, unfortunately, due to, technology and the access of information and the depthness of the amount of information that's available, where I find it kind of disturbing where it's coming to a point where people failing or making mistakes or doing something wrong or doing something bad is becoming a spectacle. And what I mean by that, it's getting to a point where if you do something wrong, if you don't make a big, huge deal out of how wrong you were and what you did, if you're not just like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I was angry, and I made a mistake and please forgive me. I want everybody to know. And mom, we had a fight and I love you. So I want to write a whole song about it. If we don't make a spectacle about it, what's happening is people are finding it harder to not only themselves, but for others to accept the mistakes that are made, man. So let me give you a little bit of insight on the way I look at mistakes and whatnot, right? Depending on where you are mentally, knowing yourself, and how you're able to deal with situations, mistakes can be something that can be brushed off easily. Now, let me elaborate on that, man. That doesn't mean that you take it lightly or that you don't contemplate about it or that you don't analyze the situation. That just means that you can accept a mistake, know you're wrong, try to learn from it, and move on. And that's what we're going to talk about as well later on in this podcast, how to learn and get better from your mistakes. It's too much of a spectacle, man. And when we get into this idea of making our mistakes a spectacle, it makes it very hard for people to accept their own mistakes, but for others to accept them. So the first part I want to kind of talk about, man, is accepting your own mistakes, man. You have to get to a point to where when things happen in your life, you do not let them totally bog you down, change your mood, affect your entire day, affect everything you got going on. That is making a spectacle out of it, because a lot of times when we look at mistakes or decisions that we made that maybe weren't right or we could have done better, at the end of the day, when we go back and look at them, here's another quote. I can't remember where heard it from, but everything that we think is good, whenever we think something is going good, it's not actually going that good. But whenever we think things are going bad and horrible, it's not actually that bad. And we have to take that kind of perspective and that kind of outlook, especially when it comes to mistakes. If you don't allow yourself to make mistakes, if you don't allow yourself to fail, you'll spend too much time thinking about the mistake that you made, thinking about the failure that you made or the goal you didn't accomplish. You'll spend way too much time thinking about that and not enough time thinking about how you can learn from it and become better. So it all starts with first you being able to accept your mistakes without making a spectacle out of them. If you were late to work, don't get bogged down and throw a temper tantrum and just let it ruin your whole day and throw your swag off, because a lot of times what happens is when we worry or harp too much on mistakes or failures, we let that affect whatever else is going on, and it also causes us to fail at that. Let me give you an example. If you were late to work and you allowed that being late to affect your whole mood and ruin your day, your sales will be affected that day. Your metrics or your numbers or whatever your job, if you allow it to, will be affected that way, and not in a positive way, in a negative way, which will kind of amplify the mistake, the initial mistake, even more. And it's so often because we are human. We are human. We will make a lot of mistakes. And when that happens over and over again, and you're not of the mindset to look at it from a mature and complete standpoint, it could become overwhelming and to the point where you feel like everything you do is wrong. And not only that, everything you do wrong has to be made a spectacle of. We have to get to this place where we start to look at mistakes as a learning opportunity, an opportunity to move forward and better ourselves, because that goes to the next thing. And this is something that I personally suffer with myself. I'm a type of person who, if I make a mistake, I'm able to casually be like, yo, I messed up, my bad, and move on. But behind the scenes, if it was a text message conversation, just know I went through that text message conversation and I actively was like, man, where could I have said something different? How could I have approached this at a different way? How could I have maybe rearranged these words? I take it upon myself to do that. However, with that, I don't expect everybody to necessarily do that. So, with that being said, when I'm dealing with people, the problem that arises is people often want me to make a bigger spectacle of my mistake. And it's not on anybody's fault. That's kind of the way the world is. But they want you to make a spectacle of the mistake. My issue is people aren't willing to make spectacles of their own mistakes. And it's something that I'm growing with. It can be petty, but I'm working on that, being like, hey, this person may not be the type of person who's able to, casually acknowledge a mistake and actually be dependent upon to go back and review it. I don't expect that of them. I'm not going to let that bother me. We have to get to a place as a people, as a whole, where it's not more of a spectacle to see somebody fail versus somebody succeed, so that we can all deal with our own mistakes and failures in a way that's more conclusive and more productive to what we're trying to do and try to accomplish in life. I'll give you another example, man. It's too often you'll go see a YouTube video of, you know, I don't know, happy family out at the park. 250 views. Happy family at the park gets their picnic run over with a monster truck. 10 million views. That's an example of a spectacle of a mistake, man. And something I say often, I really don't truly mean it, but it's kind of a little funny thing I say. Like when my nieces and nephews were younger, I used to play Guitar Hero, right? And I was fire at it. And I'm talking like 300 note streaks. I was good at Guitar Hero. So I used to show off for my little nieces and nephews and play. And I found like they weren't giving any reaction. But when I got that reaction, mess up one of them notes. Get a mess up on your note streak. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious and it's funny. And even though it's something that could be simple as that, that's just another example at how we have been trained and kind of taught to make this spectacle and kind of enjoy other people's mistakes, even if it's something deep down inside of you. I have a very close friend. I consider her one of my best friends. She knows who she is, man. I was having a conversation about something serious, and somehow or another, I bit my tongue, man. And when I'm telling you, like, this is probably like the worst tongue bite I've ever had. But she laughed at it. And I was like, man, you pray on my downfall. And I know she means nothing by it. You know what I mean? She's always been there for me. She knows she is. But it's just like that idea. In a way, it's almost evil, but it's almost funny to see people fail. If you go out and you hit 33 pointers and you miss one, what's the crowd gonna holler? Air ball. So we got to get past that, man. Real quick, I just asked you to think about it. A good decision that you made recently. When you made that decision, were you confident? Now, if you were confident about that decision, where did your confidence stem from? Most likely it was from a prior experience or with trial and error that let you learn how to do something right. All right. So it's like we make mistakes every day, man. All of them aren't life changing. All of them aren't something that's going to be, life or death. But it's time to stop and to analyze your options and think about when you're making your choice. If you don't end up with the results that you wanted, you got to realize there's an opportunity to learn from the mistakes. And even when it comes to trials and tribulations, I try to preach that to people. We have to learn that these late bills that we couldn't maybe pay on time, or this job that we lost, these are obstacles and things, but they're more importantly opportunities to better yourself. And as soon as we look at these mistakes as opportunities to better ourselves, as opposed to a spectacle or making fun of someone, it will help and it will go a long way. All right. So I just wanted to kind of get into the mistake thing and the spectacle and how my view is on it. When we come up in the next seg, I'm going to show you how to take mistakes and some things you could do to try to learn from them and make them work for you. All right. Medicine Ball with your boy LS3. Thank you for rocking with me. Check this beat. When we get back, we're going to continue this episode. The spectacle of mistakes. Yeah. Welcome back. Medicine Ball with your boy LS3. If you ain't in shape, at least your brain should be. You already know we focusing on giving your brain a six-pack. Know that. Hey. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The spectacle of mistakes. That's right. We're talking about some mistakes and the idea behind making them a bigger issue than sometimes they need to be, and how that can sometimes make it harder for us to move past mistakes and forgive ourselves from them, but also forgiving others, which is a part of empathy, which is a part of growing and being a better person and all of that good stuff. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight. So with my diagnosis with bipolar, and I told myself I would start explaining more about my particular diagnosis because bipolar is something big, but also what I'm finding is the more I talk, the more intellectual things that I may say and the more ideas that I kind of put out, I feel like it's good in the aspect that people are hearing what I'm saying and, are agreeing that some of this stuff is really good and whatnot. The downside is people are forgetting that I'm still bipolar. So that can be a little bit rough on me at times because I often forget that dealing with my mental illness every day in itself is a job, right? It is a struggle. It is something that I have to actively work on. So whether it be getting frustrated, whether it be getting depressed, whether it be my anxiety taking over, something of that nature, I'm still human. And being the guy that I am, my mother always calls me lion hearted because I can be like a lion, but ultimately I'm a real sweetheart when it comes to dealing with other people. And as I grow, I'm starting to learn to put myself first in situations where previously I wouldn't have, but I also juggle with wanting to represent and live by the things that I'm constantly telling to you guys who listen to me. So, when it comes to with mistakes, I know with my diagnosis, I could tend to, and I'm not perfect, I still have it, but sometimes I could tend to make them bigger than they actually were. And that would send me into a spiral of anxiety, depression, doubt, over analyzing, looking at pictures for too long and looking at situations for too long. And in some of those situations, it was something that wasn't in my control or something that I had to just understand and agree, hey, it didn't work out, move forward. So, in order for me to keep my sanity, especially with my diagnosis, and anybody who deals with racing thoughts or anxiety or depression knows, man, little things like that can really swing your mood and really weigh on you. So I want to keep letting people know that I am diagnosed. It is something that I have to deal with every day. The things that I talk about and the methods that I use are no way indicative of me saying that I'm a perfect person, because I'm probably the most imperfect person. But it's kind of like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And because of that, my thirst for knowledge on how to deal with life, my mental, and people is a very, very strong thirst. So I'm always researching. I'm always looking things up. I'm always reading. I'm always looking at topics and ideas to make myself a better person. So in a way, it could come off maybe to some people like, hey, this guy feels he knows it all. It's not that. It's that I'm constantly obtaining knowledge. And because I obtain it all the time, I do have a wealth of knowledge in some situations. And what you guys got to understand is you're just as important to me as I may be to some of you guys. So talking to you guys every week helps me out. Working my way through my own life problems and giving these tips and tricks helps me out and helps me to reestablish and reaffirm that I'm doing the proper thing, all right? So let's get into this mistake thing, man. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I do in order to move from mistakes. And not only that, to get the lesson that's hidden in them, all right? The first thing is to acknowledge your mistakes. You have to acknowledge your mistakes. Early on, acknowledging my mistakes was very, very hard on me, and people just do not know. I'm not always completely transparent, but I'm talking about depressing. I'm talking about sleepless nights. I'm talking about thinking about it while I'm at work or while I'm busy doing something else or involved in something else where my mind should be focused on. I'm thinking about my mistakes, things that I could do better, my failures, but you have to acknowledge them. And, for some people, I feel like it's a sign of weakness, and it can come off as soft, but not admitting to your mistakes can make you really look even worse, and you can lose respect. So I want to be very open in admitting my mistakes. I get depressed. I'm not always handling situations the best, but I work on it every day. But acknowledging your mistakes, accept your responsibility for any poor outcome, whether it was your fault or whether it's something you just contributed to. It's a responsibility thing, man. And I try to practice being over responsible. And it's a thin line. And I find myself in situations where I know it's probably not something that I caused. But if I was involved in it, I try to take more responsibility than not, or to take extra, just so I can know that I'm taking my bear, and that with that amount that I've acknowledged, I can work on it. All right. So you have to acknowledge it. We're not saying make a spectacle out of it, but you have to acknowledge it. The second thing that goes right top of this, which is very important, especially for me and my diagnosis, is we're too hard on ourselves. We're too hard on ourselves. You have to have compassion for yourself. Do not beat yourself up over making a mistake because it causes a spectacle. It can cause it to rise, elevate, and just grow. So you have to have that compassion for yourself, because what happens is that compassion will eventually turn into determination and give you that extra fight that you need to accomplish your goal, or to make yourself a better person, or to acknowledge how you're living, and to see what's going on. For instance, if you make a mistake and you decide, hey, I'm just going to eat ice cream all day and watch TV. That's okay in a sense. Have your day to watch the TV and eat the ice cream and then get over it. Just sitting there harping over it will not help. You waste far more time thinking about the mistake, and you miss out on what you're supposed to do, which is trying to find the lesson from it so it doesn't happen again. All right? So you have to have compassion for yourself to make the best out of a situation and use it to benefit you in your future. The third thing, you got to ask yourself the hard questions, man. You can show compassion, but you got to be real with yourself. And this goes a lot into the person you are. You have to reflect upon it in order to be productive. So when you reflect on it in a way to be productive. Consider like what went wrong, what steps you could take in the future to do better. Try to see if you can find a specific lesson you're taking away from your mistake, and how you can apply those lessons to other areas in your life, man. You got to try to get some gain from the loss. The way you're going to gain is to try to learn as much as you can from that lesson and apply it to not just that situation, but see where you can apply it to other situations in your life. Me personally, I'm bad at writing things out. So because of that, I have focused more on writing things out. Sometimes I write things down in order to gain clarity. When I have to ask myself these hard questions, I will write that down. If somebody says I was a jerk to them, I need to look at myself and be like, yo, can you be a jerk at times? Yes, you can. Is that an issue? Yes, it is. How can you be better with it? What can you do in the future to positively learn from that? All right. And here's the fourth thing. And I only wanted to give you guys these four. There's a couple of other steps, and there's many other ways to go about it. These are just things that I do. And being somebody who suffers from bipolar, which most would consider a little bit of an extreme when it comes to dealing with your mental, I know that they could most likely be helpful to a person who's maybe diagnosed with less of a mental health illness, or maybe doesn't have one and is just going through something. Here's the fourth thing, man. Change your mindset. Changing your mindset. You have to move from the idea of you're improving your mind until you're actually expanding, right? So instead of up, more out. Okay, so when you make a mistake, you gotta stop viewing your successes and your failures and your goals. And we talked about this in another podcast. You control in a lot of situations how you judge whether it's a failure or a success. And what you got to do is you have to stop looking at your successes based on perfecting one particular thing. It's about a larger perspective. You have to expand all of your knowledge, and you have to look at your mistakes through a perspective that views the larger vision that you have for yourself. If you're somebody who's late to work and you want to focus on being organized and more punctual, you have to account that into what you have bigger for your life. So that way you're getting maximum learns, maximum gains. You remember, it's about exercising our minds. You're getting maximum gains from your mistake. Success may be for you, say for instance, if you want to, I don't know, if you're running, you want to run a mile, a 4-minute mile, but it might be a performance goals that focuses on just one thing that you're aiming to improve over time. So as you make mistakes throughout your life, you got to grow your mind to grow out instead of up. That's what I was saying. It has to be outward. Open yourself up to see a larger picture instead of just going up. Maybe a success should be, hey, I want to complete the mile. You have to start there. You have to give yourself the victories. When I preach giving yourself victories, this is what I mean, man. You have to judge your caliber in a different way. Instead of me thinking, hey, my success for this podcast is 10,000 listeners per episode. Maybe I should change it up to maybe I want 100 listeners or even more. Maybe if 2 or 3 people reach out to me and told me they heard it, I got to take that as a success because I reached somebody. You have to learn to change your mindset. And that's what we preach constantly on Medicine Ball. It's bigger than that isolated incident. It's an overall thing. All right. So again, with me having my diagnosis, when it comes to mistakes, these are just some things that I find help me. And again, number one, acknowledge a mistake without making a spectacle of it. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be a person who knows yourself and can take things to heart without making a big ordeal out of them. Number two, you got to have that compassion for yourself. We too hard on ourselves. And I know for me, I am my own worst critic. And I know as I grow, I work on this every day. Being too hard on yourself is human. And that goes back to social media and what we're exposed to. A lot of the things we're exposed to on TV or on the radio or online or something like that is all things that are just like extraordinarily spectacular, but they only show those until you start to think that's normal. It's not. Have compassion. We're human. Number three, you got to ask yourself them hard questions, man. Don't beat around the bush when you're dealing with yourself. If you want to get maximum understanding and to get a maximum lessons out of a mistake, if you can't ask yourself the hard questions, you're playing with yourself. You're not addressing it head forward, head on. And number four, change your mindset, man. That's ultimately what it's about. Working your brain out and changing your perspective so that if these things ever come up again, you'll have no issue with them and you'll be able to deal with them, all right? That was seg number two. Seg number three, I'm going to give y'all my final thoughts on it. Again, this is Medicine Ball with your boy LS3. Today's episode is the spectacle of mistakes. Check this beat out. We're going to come back with the last seg and get it going. Yeah. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Medicine Ball with your boy LS3. Focusing on all things mental health and giving your brain a six-pack. That's right. In today's episode, we are talking about the spectacle of mistakes, man. That's right. Talking about making mistakes and how you can become a better person from them. How can you use them to your advantage and how to deal with them, man, just in general, man. So we're going to keep it right on going. All right. So we've been talking about mistakes this podcast, man, and I'm just here to wrap it up and bring it all together, man. So at the end of the day, man, we have to get to this point to where we stop making spectacle of other people's mistakes, man, and show some empathy, and that starts with being able to stop making a spectacle of your own mistakes and your own failures. I use this example, man. You ever notice how if you're sitting around and somebody has a little baby and the baby falls down, a lot of times what I notice is before they even decide what they're going to do, they turn around and they look at those adults. And in my experiences, if you're just cool about it and don't say anything, the baby will get up and go on about their business. But if you, oh my God, my baby fell, you know what that baby's going to do? That baby going to look you right in your eye. It's going to take one of them deep breaths like you about to go swimming. And you know what's coming after that. A big cry is going to get let out, man. I was going to cry, but I can't even do the baby voice. But you already know. But that's just another example of making spectacles of mistakes of others, man. And it starts with not making a spectacle of our own mistakes, man. And ultimately, we have to have more empathy, man. And what I tell people is it first starts by not expecting, if somebody did you wrong, do not expect for the person to go out on a platform and on social media and to make a music video about how they did you wrong and how they apologize. Don't do that. If you're not willing to, if you did somebody wrong, go make a music video and stand on a platform on social media and apologize about it. You shouldn't ask that of others, man. And that goes into something deeper that we will get into on a later podcast. And that's when it comes to your character and how you're viewed from people. Do not ask things of others that you wouldn't expect from yourself. And even if you expect a spectacle to be made out of your own mistakes, don't ask that for other people, man. Mistakes are already something that we relate to being weak. It's if you admit them. We relate to being a mess up and just an all around mess. So we have to start by first not making a spectacle of our mistakes, and then stop making us spectacles of the mistakes of others, because you know what that allows? That allows a world in which it's okay to make mistakes. And ultimately, it should be, because mistakes are nothing more than a test. It's a quiz that you bombed. And you know what? Guess what? You're going to get another chance to make that quiz or that test up. So just like in school, when you bombed a test or a quiz and the teacher told you was that you could make it up, you be pretty delusional not to go back and study that thing that you just bombed to make sure that you make a better grade on the next test. That's all we talking about here, man. And I want to be very, very clear with that. So with this week, I'm back to giving y'all an exercise, man. It's a 2-part exercise, and it's about exactly what we've been talking about. The next time you make a mistake, if you're able to get over it, that's fine. That's cool. Learn something from it. But if it's one of those mistakes where you find yourself thinking about it when you should be giving your attention to something else, or it's keeping you up at night, or it's making you depressed, or it's giving you anxiety, or it's making you doubt yourself, you need to take a step back and do the things that we talked about earlier, man. You need to address that head on, be honest with yourself, and come to terms with it. So that's the first thing. I don't want the little mistakes. If you tripped somebody up at school and it's something you're able to laugh off and whatnot, we're not talking about that. We're talking about that mistake that you might have had at the beginning of the day, and here it is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're distracted from what you're doing, thinking about that mistake. I want you to right then learn from that, write it down, see what you can do better, and be done with it. Do not make a spectacle of it. Don't post it on Facebook. Don't make it something big drawn out. Don't raise your voice about it. Don't draw any other attention to it. I want you to focus on only, hey, I'm making a spectacle out of this, which is going to affect other things negatively. Let me move over it. All right? Here's the second part. Forgive others for their mistakes. First of all, don't expect if somebody says my bad that they're going to go back and harp over it and really give thought to it on how they're going to be better. Don't expect that from somebody, especially if you're not a person who's doing that with your own mistakes. It will spare you a lot of disappointment and a lot of being upset. Don't expect that from people. Just, don't demand for them to make a big harp out of it. Don't make a spectacle out of it. So that way they can hopefully learn from it and see what's going on in a non-threatening manner. And what this does is the more people that you exercise this with, and the more people that exercise this, is we will become comfortable with mistakes. And I don't say that in a way of being comfortable with just being sloppy or slacking off. No, you're going to be comfortable with making a mistake, and you will get excited because you're going to look at it as an opportunity to learn, to better yourself, to become a more well-rounded person, to broaden your knowledge, expand your horizons. Man, it's always an opportunity. These mistakes are nothing but opportunities, and we have to get over making a spectacle out of them. So that's 2 things that I know it sounds easy, but again, hold yourself accountable, man. I'm not talking about those little mistakes that you forget in 5 minutes. I'm talking about that thing that happened at 8 a.m. in the morning, and at 3 o'clock you're daydreaming about it. At that point, I need you to lock in, realize what's going on, maybe write it down, try to learn from it, and move on. It's imperative that you move on and let it go completely so that it doesn't hinder you. And on top of that, the next part of this exercise, letting others be forgiven for their mistakes without making a spectacle about it. If you're out and you see somebody running hard and they don't win the race or whatnot, man, don't laugh at that kind of stuff, man. Let's start practicing some empathy. Now, we are human. Some things are funny. I'd be lying if I didn't say, if I saw somebody go up for a dunk and they got hung, I wouldn't chuckle about it. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about somebody who might come to you and be like, hey, I was upset in that situation. Forgive me for it. Now, remember, this is it within reason. I try to preach this because I often know that people can also take things to an extreme. If somebody's slapping you around and cursing you out and they want to come back and say they apologize for the mistake, accept the apology, but you might need to keep it moving from that whole situation. All right. So let's not get out of control in here. Accepting others' mistakes doesn't mean, when I say accepting it and not making a spectacle out of it, that doesn't mean let somebody walk all over you. We are human. We do have certain emotions and feelings that will overcome us. Don't let anybody walk all over you. But all I'm saying is, if you or your mother had a fight, do not be expecting your mom to write a 10-page love letter that's delivered by Donald Trump to you about how they're upset. Let it go, man. Let's start practicing forgiveness and empathy. And once you're able to do that, you'll become productive with the mistakes, because you'll be able to instantly look at the lessons that are there, look at the opportunities, move forward, be human, and make yourself a better person, all right? That's all we have for today's episode of Medicine Ball, the Spectacle of Mistakes. Remember, go like the Medicine Ball page on Facebook. Go join the group if you want all the updates. If you want to get the podcast updates automatically without having to go search for it or go look for my post about it, subscribe. Whatever one you're on, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, whatever you're on, subscribe to it. You can also reach out to me. I got an email that's dedicated just to y'all. medicineballls3@gmail.com. Holla at me. Man, let's come together. You had a great week. You are a great person, and you got this. Stay strong mentally. I love y'all. Hold it down until next week. I'm going to holla at y'all. Medicine Ball with LS3. I'm out. Yeah.